Hi there. This is the first time I'm going to be speaking publicly about my my experience in the Church of Scientology. I guess I'll start from before Scientology. A lot of people will tell you that that when they got into Scientology, there was something that was missing in their lives that they were, trying to resolve, or some sort of problem, or something wasn't quite right. Maybe they had a girl problem, maybe they had a money problem, maybe they had whatever your problem is. In my case, my problem was I had a lot of problems. It started very, very young. I've had issues a long time. I was 6 years old. From ages 6 to 8, I was molested, and then whenever I turned 8, or somewhere around that time, my mother and I left our home where my 2 siblings were, and my father. And we went to a family member's house, and the next morning we woke up, and it was like a family swap, I woke up one morning and I had one set of family, and then I woke up the next morning and had a totally different family. And it was pretty confusing for a child. I do remember my mother not being very happy at home, and I wanted her to be happy. So I pretty much went along with the whole family swap thing. And as I got older, I got in some trouble. I got into drugs. I did LSD when I was 12 years old. I smoked a lot of pot, and whatever. But in high school, I found out that I wasn't the only anomaly in my mother's relationship with her ex-husband, because I was born a bastard son. She'd had an affair with another man, and but I was the second one, and there was another one, my brother Travis. And I found out about him through my biological father when I was around 13 or 14. And it turns out I ended up meeting him. He was in the same town I was in. Of course, there were some major issues. My biological father was a alcoholic and drug abuser. And there were a lot of violent, abusive situations for years, during those years. And honestly, I just, at a certain point in my adolescence, I was ready to get out of the house and live on my own without. If I was going to have a crazy life, it was going to be because I made my life crazy. I felt like I was what in Scientology they call the effect of a situation, And so I didn't want to be at effect anymore. I got emancipated at 16. I got my GED. I briefly went to college and met a girl from Canada who come down because she was having drug problems in Canada. She was doing a lot of clubbing and doing a lot of ecstasy and stuff. And so we met, and we dated for a while, and we ended up moving to Tennessee, to Nashville, Tennessee, in 1999. And it was the end of 1999. And when we got up there, things just kind of didn't really work out. I mean, we had one car. She was trying to find a job. I was trying to find a job. She found a job before I did, and she needed the car for the job. So most of the time when I was trying to find a job, she was out using the car, and I couldn't find a job, so I had to walk, get a job within walking distance. And I finally convinced her to get a car, and she was afraid to, have a car note. And so she did, and things got a little better, I guess. I had some friends from Louisiana that moved up there too, so I had people to hang out with, as well as some friends that I made while there. But our relationship just kind of deteriorated. She was going back out clubbing and stuff. Ended up having a man over to our house, and I caught them, having sex and stuff, and it was just a bad situation. So after that, after that incident, I went on the road with my friends, playing music with some friends, and we traveled all over the southeast, south central United States, playing at different universities. And to be honest, at the time I was really just on the road, helping the guys out. I didn't play a whole lot. And we had a lot of fun. There was copious amounts of drugs and loose women all over the place. And I ended up getting a little gig through my roommate, and got to do some stage management for some bigger artists out of Nashville. Nothing huge, just some decent paying, good experience type gigs, stage management, and then my brother and I reconnected, and we started playing music I would drive down from Nashville to Mississippi in Jackson, where he lived, and we would play. We played with a bunch of different people just for fun. And then one day I come down to Louisiana, and I was looking for some weed, and I called my buddy up, and I don't know what this shit was, man, but I think from what I hear these days about synthetic weed, this must have been what it was, because I bought this stuff, and the guy that sold it to me, we rolled a big joint with it and smoked the whole thing. And let me tell you, I wasn't the same after it. I was hallucinating constantly. I had stroboscopic visions in my peripheral all the time. Like, I could barely drive. I had a constant state of panic and anxiety. Didn't want to leave the house. Didn't want to talk to anybody. Didn't want to turn a light on. Didn't want to go out in the dark. I went to Mississippi again and stayed with a friend out in the middle of the woods, and stayed up in his house, curled up in a fetal position for probably 6 weeks. And, you know, didn't know what to do with myself. It was literally like I was tripping on acid, and it wouldn't stop, you know. So I started trying to look up what that could possibly be, and I found a disorder called HPPD, hallucination perception persistent disorder. And I found a couple of forums, and God, it was so depressing that, you know, literally every month there would be at least one person who was writing on the forums that had committed suicide, because people would ask, oh, where did this person go? Oh, moderator says that they hung themselves, or, you know, shot themselves, or jumped in front of a car, or whatever. So, and I considered the same thing, honestly. I was thinking about jumping in front of a Mack truck. So, and when you're in that kind of mental state and it won't go away, it's a nightmare, you know. So, I was in Jackson and had a conversation with my mom and dad. Finally, you know, they knew something was wrong. It was so obvious. I mean, if you've ever seen someone tripping, it's pretty clear that there's something not quite right. And so I talked to my dad and my mom, and they were really concerned. They wanted me to come home. I was just afraid I wasn't going to be able to make the drive, because the hallucinations were getting so bad that I wasn't sure if they were real or not. You know, I was driving, and there was that tree falling on me, and swerve, you know, hearing voices and whatever. Not really voices in my head, but more like trying to calm myself down, you know, trying to calm my inner thoughts from freaking out all the time. So I ended up making it back there, and I found a book that I wanted to buy about a guy who had taken some mushrooms and had a similar experience for 2 years. He was, he never came, like, he was pretty much messed up for 2 years. And I thought reading his experience and how he recovered would help me out. So I did. I read the book. Well, actually, I went to the Walden Books where my cousin worked, and they didn't have the book. It was called, by the way, the book is called The Happiness Purpose, and I've still never read it to this day. But it's a guy named Edward de Bono. Edouard de Bono. I think he's a French guy. And I don't know, he developed some child learning programs in France, and you know, supposedly it's some innovative stuff. But my big issue is I wanted to get this hallucination stuff handled. All right, so up to this point in my life, I've experienced a lot of abuse, a lot of grief, a lot of what I guess people in their adolescence would call an unfair life, or a shitty hand, or whatever you want to call it. All I ever wanted to do was music from a young age, and everything that was going on in my family was just a constant distraction, and upsets, and fights, and violence, and attempted homicides, and being followed by private investigators, or going to court, or insurance fraud, and all these things were. I just wanted to get the hell away from all of that. And I wanted to live my life the way I wanted to live it, playing music. But basically that's where I was at. I was wanting to just handle that particular problem where I'm hallucinating. Because if I can't walk around, walk down the street without, thinking people's words are gonna jump out and physically hurt me, or that trees are trying to, whatever. I mean, hallucinations are just no fun to deal with. So my cousin had a recommendation. It was under self-help, and honestly, I don't think she gave it too much thought. She just was, here's a book, might help you, called Dianetics. I looked at it, and it looked kind of interesting, and so I bought it. And that night I read 6 chapters of the book. I think I made it to the chapter about demon circuits. And until to this day, I've still never finished Dianetics. And I don't really know anyone. It's funny, I never knew anyone in the church who really finished Dianetics, especially all the staff that I worked with. So I bought this book, and in Dianetics, there's most of the time there's little cards that you can fill out, or a number you can call, or the call center that you can call, and they'll route you to the nearest Dianetics center or Church of Scientology. And that is what I did. I called the number, and the next morning I was on the phone with a public executive secretary, named Natasha Manuel, and I told her my problem. And she said, we can help you with that. So, of course, I'm fucking ecstatic, I'm sitting here going out of my mind, tripping balls all the time, and just, at that time I was really bad off on drugs. I mean, I was doing anything and everything. I was 23 years old, and I OD'd probably 8 times. I've been institutionalized in a mental hospital twice. I had numerous, problems, relationship problems, family problems, substance abuse problems, and not everyone that gets into Scientology gets into it the same way. I do want to make this clear that I was one of the ones that was in a weakened state, but you don't have to be in a weakened state. That's one of the things that makes Scientology so harmful, is that you don't have to. It doesn't have to be a big problem that you want to solve. It can be a small problem. In my case, it was a very big problem. And I will say that the bigger the problem you start out with in Scientology, the more trouble you will have getting out. Because I left staff in 2004, and I moved back to Louisiana in 2005. I didn't really start considering myself not a Scientologist until really a year ago. So that's almost 9 years. It's a very effective trap. And it comes with all sorts of little, habits, routines, thought patterns, behavior, thought stopping, gaslighting, a lot of things that I'm still learning about every day, every single day. I got into the Baton Rouge Mission through the Purification Rundown. I got signed up for the course. My mom gave me the money to do it, and she also helped pay for a hotel for me to stay in while I was doing that. So I started the Purification Rundown, and that was in 2001. And I started some coursework. I did the Ups and Downs course, which explains to you what PTS and SPs are, suppressive persons. The person who got me on, the person that really got me into Scientology, because the PES that signed me up to the Purification Rundown really didn't sell me on Scientology at all. I wasn't interested in her pitch. She wasn't able to get through to me. She was able to get through to me on the Purification Rundown because I already wanted it. She didn't have to sell me that. But as I was doing the Purification Rundown, they wanted to get me on course and get me doing something other than sitting in my hotel room. And I really wasn't up for that, but I ended up going into the course room just to be nice, and I met this guy named Dominic, and got me on the Ups and Downs course, and I started reading it, and he would come over and stop me and tell me, are you misunderstanding a word, or, is he having a problem? And I'm like, no, So he shows me the barriers to study, which, you may or may not know, but the barriers to study, misunderstood words, all that's, it's study technology that L. Ron Hubbard invented. And of course, it's extremely aggravating when you first get into it, because I wasn't having any problem understanding what the book was saying. But I went into, he took me into the supervisor's office, and because I was beginning to get frustrated with him stopping me from reading, because I was ready to just go through the course and here you go, here's my sheets, fuck off. So he started questioning me about things, and he basically wanted to know what my problem was, and I'm like, look, I don't want your fucking religion, man. I'm not interested in religion. I don't like organized religion. Your religion has a product that I am buying and paying for to help me, get my fucking head straight, because I've been tripping balls for so long. And he says, okay, fair enough, and I'm like, okay, good. So I stand up, but he stands up and blocks the door. And he just stood at the door like a stone, and I'm like, I told him to move. It's like, I'm trying to leave, you're blocking my way. And he's like, I got that. The Scientology, I got that. TR fucking whatever. Tone 40 acknowledgement. But this angered me, and I tried to move him out of the way of the door, and I succeeded, but he fought me, and he kept trying to get back into the way of the door. I just didn't want to hurt him, and I assume he didn't want to hurt me either. But what was odd is, there's a plexiglass window, and there's people in the course room ignoring what the fuck is going on. I see a person trying to escape, and they're just writing their little fucking notes and clearing their words. So I'm not real sure what to think of this fucking guy, I've previously done this OCA test, which is a test that you take just personality test, just something to give them a way to sell you Scientology. Find your ruin and find what it is you want to handle. And apparently, they thought I was PTS or something, so they put me on the ups and downs course. So I've been doing the fucking ups and downs course. This guy's trying to stop me from leaving. So, but I was intrigued. I was intrigued by a couple of things. I was intrigued that he wasn't scared, because I was really about ready to knock his fucking block off and get in a full-blown fist fight with him right there in the course room. I was amazed that he wasn't really affected by that, like he wasn't backing off. I was also amused and intrigued by the people on course, in the course room, who were just not even paying attention. It was like they had so much focus that it didn't even bother them. They were completely attentive on what they were doing. And they all seemed pretty happy. So Dominic said, look, man, you want to walk out the door, I ain't going to stop you. But you're here for a reason, and you've got some major problems. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have some major problems. And he was right. I wasn't there to, I was there to fix myself. I was there to try and help myself and give myself another fucking chance in life. And I had no other means of doing so. It was the last really option, last resort. I didn't want to go back into a institution. I didn't want to go back into the hospital or readmit myself for being fucking insane. So this was like, a pretty decent option, I thought, especially considering they didn't want to, give me a bunch of, not that I'm afraid of drugs or anything, but I really didn't like, when I was a kid, I was put on psychiatric drugs, and I just didn't care for them. They didn't make me feel right. And maybe that had something to do with everything else that was going on, but I didn't feel like I was the one that needed medication. Actually, when I was a kid, I felt like my parents were the ones that needed medication or something. So I was intrigued, and he appealed to my sense of curiosity. He was like, look, you want to walk out, go ahead. I ain't going to stop you, but I know that Scientology is going to help you, and if you walk out of that door, then you're giving up any hope that you have of survival and being happy and handling this problem that you have. He said, why don't you just try this one course and see if it will help you at all. If it helps you even a little bit, then what do you got to lose? And then if that helps, and maybe there's something else that can help him, before you know it, you're doing okay. And then he basically also said that if I did the course and finished it and didn't feel like it was any help to me, then I could just, I don't have to go back on course. But he wanted me to finish that one course, so I said sure. And that was my first time. That was how I really got into Scientology. Whenever he convinced me that everything was so bad that I needed to at least give it a chance. So I agreed. Now maybe later I'll go into more detail about things, but my brother ended up joining the the purification rundown, because he was having similar issues too. So he came down to Baton Rouge from Jackson and started the Purif, and we did what you call a twin, where you have, you know, another person do your project with you, whatever course or action on the bridge. And so he came along and was staying and we were staying in the same little hotel room, and my mom footed the bill for his little rehab in the Purif, and so we're doing exercise every day. We're sweating out all kinds of shit in a sauna, and you know, there were a couple of other guys in the sauna with us, some older men actually. There's a guy named Jim, who was formerly at St. Hill, I believe. He was living in New Orleans, and they got him to redo a Purif. And there was another old Cajun Kunas guy who was just, you know, miserable as could be in that sauna. You know? And as I'm in the sauna, I'm having very violent episodes of hallucinations and basically going type 3, what they call in Scientology, type 3 psychotic. I'm going psychotic in the sauna. And you're taking massive amounts of vitamins and niacin, and got these niacin flushes every day, and drinking oil and lecithin and all this, like, you know, you're just cramming your body full of shit every fucking day, eating salads and tons of vitamins and oils and potassium and salt and B vitamins, and just, you know, it's a very grueling thing. When you go home at night, you're just ready to freaking, you know, pass out for the rest of the... You sleep for probably 24 hours, but you got to get up and do it again. I was on this program doing that for... I'll put it this way. My brother was started after me by about a month, and he finished before me by about 4 months. I was on the Purif for probably about 6 to 8 months, maybe 8 months. Just I would something would happen, because you had to write a note to the CS, and the CS, you know, has to get the folder, but then you got to wait a couple of days. I had a lot of CS actions. At one point, I had to stop the Purif and go get medically checked out with an MRI, CT scan, EKG, EEG, all this stuff to make sure that there wasn't anything wrong with my brain. And once all that got checked out, I got put back on the Purif, and eventually, honestly, you know, I just wanted to be done. I attested to being done on the meter. And of course, now I know that fucking meter is just a little, it's like a pendulum, you know, it's basically a hypnotic device. It does make you feel better, but then again, when people are hypnotized, they tend to have a very light and floaty, happy feeling. So I tested, and it's getting close to 2002. My brother and I had made plans to move to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and we had a friend there, amazing musician that we wanted to play with and write music with, and then another good friend and amazing musician from Jackson who was going to move down there with us. So we had 4 guys that were going to be working on some tunes in Hattiesburg. And basically, once I finished the Purif, that's what we did. We moved to Hattiesburg and started working on some tunes. Got a job at Buffalo Wild Wings, and both me and my brother worked there, and our other roommate got a job at Subway. It didn't last long. We had a nice little place, and we played some music, and it was actually a wonderful time. You know, those 4 months that we spent there were great. But something started happening. You know, the church was calling us a lot, and seeing how we were doing, checking in on us, wanting us to go down and do a course or two or whatever. And they started to what I know now after having been on staff. They started to do these recoveries on us, and not just recoveries, but they wanted us to be more responsible for the condition on planet Earth. Dominic would basically call us and talk about all the wins that we had, the successes we had, and how much it helped us. And any person who wants to help others, if you've received help yourself, you know how important it is to help someone else when you're in a really bad situation, and you feel like you don't have anyone to reach out to, or you can't help yourself, and someone helps you. I don't care. I think any good, decent person is going to want to return the favor. Because the Puritan actually did handle my problem. The hallucinations were still there, but the residuals, you will sweat out some amazing things. Your body is a sponge. There were times there was metal flakes coming out of my skin. I heard stories about people sweating out bacon grease and all kinds of stuff, but I never saw that. I did see metal come out of my skin, and old scars came back, sunburns came back. Very bizarre, but what it really did is it reduced the severity of the hallucinations. I don't know how. Maybe just by flushing whatever toxins were still left in my body out. So it helped me greatly. I was able to go back and work, have a job, play music, things that I wasn't even considering possible before I had done the Pura. So they started talking about the mission holders, Tom and Kathy Steiner, and they were wanting to open a new hip mission in California, in Hollywood, on Melrose Avenue. And I always wanted to go to California, and I know I lived in Nashville. I enjoyed the music scene there. I kind of wanted to check out the music scene somewhere else, and maybe take a shot at finding a decent band to be in and making it big or whatever. Still at this point I'm young and I've got nothing holding me down, and just kind of want to see the world. And I figure working for a church, a volunteer gig, would be an easy way to get out there, a free ticket, ticket to ride to California. They from the very beginning, they offered to pay for everything. Everything was going to be taken care of, our U-Haul, the gas money, and everything. And me and my brother started talking about this, and our other roommate was having, a problem keeping a job, and we had convinced him to come along because he was kind of lost in life and confused, and we told the other musician that we moved to Hattiesburg, basically that we moved there to play with him. We told him that we were going to California, and I'm really glad he had a girlfriend at the time, because when we met him, he was I don't know, he was just he seemed pretty depressed. And when he met his now wife, which they just had a baby recently, she took care of him. I don't want to say that he couldn't take care of himself. That's not what I'm trying to say. I just mean that she gave him a lot in life that he seemed to be missing, you know. And so I'm glad that when we left, that was at least there, because he's a very passionate person when it comes to music, and I feel like we were all really bonding on what that was and discovering what that was, and it all kind of got cut short. It's pretty disappointing, but so my brother and I and our friend decide that we're going to move to California. And we get our notice. We give our notice at work. We plan all this stuff. I made some arrangements with the lease, and we'd only been leasing a house for 4 months, and we had signed it for a year. So I made an agreement with the people that, you know, will pay the lease for the rest of the year. We just won't be living there. And so that was okay, and I paid her 2 months in advance or something, and they could rent it out after we left or whatever. We'd still pay it, you know, they'd get double the rent basically. And also at this time, in those short 4 months, I mean, I paid off my a lot of my debt. I didn't have a whole lot of debt at this time, and after I'd done the Purif, like I was doing better with money. I was, you know, we had our bills paid, and I wasn't having to call my mom for, you know, any cash or whatever. I never had stuff pretty much taken care of, and still paying on some things that I had, some debts that I had. I had basically less than $3,000 of debt at that time. And we packed up and started heading over there. I think it was in, it was, I honestly don't remember what month it was when we decided to leave. Maybe October. It was somewhere between October and February. I know it was kind of cold, but we came down to Louisiana first and stopped to visit, and then we drove to we drove 3 days to California through Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada, and we just made a couple of stops. We arrived in Ventura, California, and when we got there, it was like a love bomb. You know, everyone was so happy to meet us, and we went into the mission, and everyone met me and Travis, and Dominic was there, and some of the people we knew from Baton Rouge were there. And we met some new people. We met Jim Hamry and Monica Galler and Vicki Miller, Wayne Miller, the course supervisor Ed and his wife, which I don't remember her name, Adam Guidry, Jason Rutland. I don't know if he was actually there when we got there, but it wasn't long after. And then we were taken to where we were going to live, and it was like a 3-bedroom house with a living room and a like a outdoor patio that was converted into a room, and there were like 8 people living there, and there were also people who would just kind of be in and out, and sometimes there'd be 12 people, you know, living in this little bitty house. And very quickly our friend, he decided to get the fuck out of Dodge. So good thing he did. Good for him. Travis and I were very upset with him that he didn't see the error of his ways or whatever. But that was the best thing he could have ever done. Get on a bus and get the fuck home. Because what was going to happen after that was just, it was total fucking brainwashing and abuse. You know, what happens on, you know, the mission holders that we worked for, Tom and Kathy Steiner. I'm not going to say that they're like a fully SO type organization, but they do run their missions very similar to the SO, and they have their own version of the RPF and EPF and all that shit. Heavy ethics, but it's a gradient. It's all a gradient, and as you know, we're new recruits. They're new to the fully surrounded, engrossed, surrounded by Scientologists, nothing but Scientology. Eat, sleep, live, breathe Scientology all day long. Well, I had talked to these guys, you know, far in advance. They knew this whole time that, you know, music is a major thing for me and for my brother and for my other friend that basically left as soon as we got there. Of course, they did a reg cycle on him, a ruin cycle, and tried to get him on a course and stuff, but it just didn't take. He's way too smart for that. So, you know, we signed 2.5-year contracts, and a lot of it, you know, when you're first starting out, and it's a volunteer job, whatever. We're trying to build a mission, the mission of Melrose, and there's some celebrities they had already gotten some funding from. One of them was Macaulay Culkin's first wife, Rachel Miner, and her boyfriend, Hal Ozan, had donated some money. I don't remember how much. I want to say, you know, close to $100,000 was put down by those two, but there was still money coming in. We were given lists, call lists to, you know, of OTs and other parishioners, pre-clears and clears, and you know, they gave us this list. You know, one of the first things I remember doing on post on the job was going into our call room, which was basically a little practical room that was by the course room with like 5 or 6 phones and people I didn't even know. I mean, this was like, it could have been the first week I was there when Tom and Kathy, you know, introduced everyone and said, this is the Melrose team, and you know, we got John Jones, Katie, I don't remember her maiden name, she married John later, me, Travis, who else was there? Adrian Heredia, and some other people, Sean McHugh, and just some other people that were on staff or on course or whatever. Most of them staff that had just signed contracts as well. And Jesus Christ. I can't believe how stupid this is. So we're calling these people, you know, fucking going down the list, trying to get them to give us money so we can build the new church, so that people can do a purif and, you know, get set, you know. I was helped by Scientology, and I wanted to help others, and I was totally committed to doing this, you know, calling people, trying to get them to donate money, And so there were some days I'd do good, some days I'd do bad. As you go along, you get, removed. A lot of times, you'll be musical chairs, they call it. They'll pull you to do something else. One day you're helping course room students with their TRs, and then the next day you're doing phone in, or you go out and you start selling books. You get trained on how to sell books and how to solicit people. You learn HCCR, you learn all these techniques, you learn all of the technology that L. Ron Hubbard developed to sell Scientology to people, how to sell Scientology to your friends, how to win friends and influence people, how to basically be a hard sell case. And if Scientology helped you at all, and you weren't able to just let it help you and then be done with it, if you were looking for more, you're always looking for that next level of help. And as long as you're doing that, you're in the machine, So there we were in the machine, my brother and I, and we were meeting new people. There were a couple new guys that came in. I remember at one point I was just feeling very depressed because after a while, we're working 15 to 16 hour days, and I wasn't getting any music time. I wasn't getting any me time. I wasn't getting any time other than sell Scientology. And of course, when you start to question that, and you say, hey, why can't I have a fucking day off? Well, then you must have some sort of ethics problem, and you need to go see the ethics officer. Because if you don't have time to do what you want to do, then there's something that either you yourself are suppressing, like you don't, you're withholding your statistics. I remember that being a thing. You're withholding your statistics, and so you have to do an ethics condition on this or whatever, and come up through the conditions. And once you join staff and you have any kind of outside interests that aren't being fulfilled, and you want them fulfilled, and you let someone know that, then it's off to ethics with you, and you have to find out what's the real reason you don't want to be here, and if you really did want to go play music, then why haven't you produced enough to allow yourself the time off? Because you have to produce X amount. We give you a quota, you don't produce it, you don't get a day off. You don't get to go do shit. So it's something that you are doing wrong. And of course, you probably heard that a lot about Scientology. It's when you want to leave, or if you have a problem with it, it's not because it's a problem with the church, or a problem with Scientology, or a problem with Dianetics. It's a problem that you have. Because no one would object to being on Scientology staff and work 16 hours a day, because you're helping the planet, you're clearing the planet. You got to clear this sector of the universe, right? So, why do you stay? I don't fucking know. It does get harder and harder to leave. So, at a certain point, I began interbulating the staff with my constant out ethics and low stats and bad behavior and whatever. And I get a handling, PTS handling. Turns out our old bandmate from Hattiesburg, we've been writing to each other letters, and because I mean we were sending each other music too, I believe, and because the internet wasn't really good enough to send massive files or anything at this point. And they did a search and discovery or whatever, locate an SP, and he was the target. Okay. Apparently, he was suppressing me. And I wrote this awful, awful, awful letter to someone who I had more musical respect for than anyone I've ever met. And I essentially destroyed that relationship. And it really was the first major, I guess, abuse that I committed, because there was nothing that he did that was wrong ever. I mean, I'm sure he's done wrong things, don't get me wrong, as everyone's a human being, but what I mean is he was not suppressing me. He'd never been anything but supportive to me. Even whenever we decided we were moving to California. He did tell me, though, that he read one of the books that we have, Fundamentals of Thought, and he did tell me that it was a bunch of horse shit. So, ethics officer probably thought that was a good indicator that he was VBI's very bad indicators. So after that, I kind of motivated myself to just go pure Scientology. Anything I was going to do musically was going to have to wait until later. I convinced myself that I would do my 2.5 years with them, and in the process, as the mission was being built, we were part of the reason they wanted me and my brother was we are musicians, and we can put shows on and we can organize events like that. I was the stage manager, in Nashville previously, and I had worked with celebrities, and it was sort of a, Melrose is kind of like a hip little area, so they wanted some young kids who knew how to schmooze and work with celebrities and whatever. So once we started raising a bunch of money and we moved to Melrose, I was shipped off to Melrose because I was out ethics for one thing or another. It was either jerking off or fucking wanting to have a relationship with somebody. They didn't want me to have a relationship with anybody, and I did, and so that makes me out ethics. And so they sent me with John Jones to Melrose in L.A. to start doing the renovations, and there was me and John Jones and a public named Benton Ludicky, and we did most of the work. We did a lot of insulation, electrical, hanging lights, ceiling tiles, floors, plumbing, faux finish, decorative stuff, trim. I mean, it was literally a gutted building right above the Golden Apple comic book store on the corner of Melrose and I don't remember. Fairfax, close enough. And we would sleep. We would work all day and we would sleep on the balcony on these pads of insulation. I remember, we'd go to bed at 2 in the morning. You don't get much sleep on Melrose Avenue. People riding around, honking, and just tons of noise. Even with earplugs, you'd wake up 7-8 times a night wake up and do it all over again the next morning. At one point, I actually was given a, and you'll hear about this with other. This is no big. I'm no big dog here, but because you hear about this Spanky Taylor stuff and where you're basically in low ethics. You're like lower than low. You're you're an amoeba, as like Mike Rinder says. You think being an ant is pretty cool because you could be an amoeba. So I was basically an ant. I'm in lower ethics conditions and manual labor, slave labor, basically. 46 bucks a week, if that. A lot of weeks we didn't get paid. And they wanted me to contact, they figured I was the best person to contact Rachel Miner, because she had I guess I was one of the people that she had more ARC with, that's what they say, ARC, she was more friendly towards me, she liked me, okay? And they wanted me to go register for, $6, $7 grand, $8 grand, fucking 20 grand, as much as I could get. And I'm like, okay, well, you guys haven't let me around any of the, people disappear all the time. Like, I'll disappear and basically I've been gone. It's similar to the Spanky Taylor thing, really. And they wanted her to get an exclusive copy of the Saturday Night Fever or whatever. They think that they can just pull you out of this person's life, and because they had affinity for you, that if they use you, you can go talk to her, get us what we want, then they just pull you back out of her life again. So I had called her and we set up a time to meet. I was like, hey, I want to talk to you about some stuff. And she was like, okay, sure, yeah, let's meet at Starbucks at 10 on Tuesday or whatever. And I was given leave to go off post, which is awesome, because I was gonna enjoy the fuck out of that and stretch this comm cycle as long as I possibly could. And I sat down and I started talking to Rachel, and I was telling her, and I wasn't real clear, it must have been so weird and confusing for her, or maybe it wasn't, maybe she knew exactly what was going on. But I felt so abused. I felt like, I felt like I was trapped. I felt like I couldn't do my music, and that's what I was telling her. I was telling her, I came out here to help, but I also have my own dreams and goals, and I'm not able to do them right now because we need money. And she was very compassionate. She said, well, what is it, Marcus? Do you want a record deal? And I just laughed, just like, if only it was that easy. Just here's a record deal, Of course I wanted a record deal, but I was supposed to be getting money from her. And I knew that I had said too much when I was basically, I don't know, telling her that my creative self was just dying, essentially. I really do feel like being on staff was killing my creative self completely. Like just losing it. No inspiration. So that ended very. It was a very awkward ending. Whenever we decided to, leave, she's like, "Well, okay, I'll see what I can donate, and I'll call whoever to see who I need to, give the money to," because they didn't want her giving the money to me, so we didn't have a way to process the payment or whatever. So we're still building the mission. But she seemed very off-put by that, and after that, you know, it wasn't really, we didn't really have a close bond like we did before. Well, I say that, but she still, for a while, we were pretty close when we did see each other, which wasn't very often because I was always in ethics trouble. So I get back to the mission, or where we're renovating, and John Jones asked me how it's going, you know, how it went, how much did you get? Did we get what we needed? And I told him, I don't know. And he's like, what the fuck do you mean you don't know? And he got very hostile and antagonistic towards me. And I thought he was going to hit me. And there were times when he did push me, like literally, physically push me. But he never did strike me. But he did get in my face and scream and, you know, try to get me to keep my TRs in. And he called me all kinds of names, like, you know, you're a fucking traitor, you're a piece of shit, motherfucking 1-1 degraded being, you know, enemy, you're in a state of treason, you need to do a fucking treason condition, you're so out ethics that, you know, you're never going to go free. I mean, just, you know, he would just fucking really lay it on thick, you know. John was brutal like that. And in that particular incident, he wrote a KR and got me sent back to Ventura, and I was scrubbing toilets and, you know, scrubbing the floors and mineral oil. Oh, fuck, man, I tear my fucking hands up polishing the wood floors with that oil every fucking day, doing an inventory on the books, going into the central files and, you know, alphabetizing shit, doing bulk mail, making sure the kids eating, you know, watching the kids because their parents are never around. Just basically physical, menial, manual labor for, that was probably for about 2-3 months. And that's what I mean, that Tom and Kathy have their own little version of the RPF. And during this time, there's all kinds of excitement going on because there's more money being raised for the Melrose Mission and more celebrities, like, you know, in the woodworks, I guess, like talking about it, like there's a buzz about the mission, like it's going to be a cool hip place, kind of like Celebrity Center for younger Scientologists to hang out and whatever. So I'm in heavy ethics, you know. I'm in fucking trouble all the time, but everyone else is all pumped up and they're on an upswing, you know. They're upstat and doing good. Jason Rutland is taking the PES post or being trained to do what Monica was doing and doing very well, getting people on the bridge, signed on to courses. They would let him take me body routing, and we would go body routing at the Books A Million, or the bookstore, Barnes and Noble, where we would body route people. And I'm a pretty personable guy. I may not seem like it right now, but there's some other things going on in my life that sort of led me to talk about this for the first time. And so we would body route. I mean, sometimes we'd be up till 2 a.m. trying to sell books, you know, or get people on course. I mean, people would really be freaked out when they pull up to a Dianetics center at midnight and there's still people there. You know, they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, don't you ever go to bed and stop working? Like, no, we want to help you. Um, it's a little bit, yeah, odd. So we threw this big party. I did my ethics. I got back in good graces. I'm back, and it's like almost Christmas time in 2003, I think. Yeah. And we've got the mission almost done. We threw this big party. This is before we opened the mission. We threw this big party to help raise some money. There's a lot of celebrities there, and it was at a house that's real famous, and I don't remember who used to live there, but there was like these zoo cages that whoever lived there before had like tigers and stuff in. There's a big, beautiful pool. I mean, there's probably any rock star or movie star that's lived in LA in the last 30 years has been to a party at this place. It's a very common place. I think it's on Laurel Canyon or something. But I got to meet a lot of people there, and meet the little Silver Lake crew that were Scientologists, and a lot of people who weren't too. They kind of mingle together. And we raised a lot of money that night. We raised a lot of money the following couple weeks, and probably enough to basically finish the mission. And it was almost Christmas, and it was crunch time, deadline. And a couple months prior, I think when I was in ethics trouble, my current sister-in-law, but at the time was just my brother's girlfriend, had come and joined staff as well. Nope, that's not right. She came later. So we had the money for the mission. This is the first Christmas that we're there. And I remember in the painting with this oil paint, and I just remember working 16 hours a day. We were sleeping. At this point, everyone who was going to be at the Melrose Mission was there working on the Melrose Mission. So it was about 8 staff. And we were all sleeping in this one room where there was no floor. It was all, it was just exposed, electrical exposed. Everything was, it wasn't really dangerous. It was just, not good living conditions. But I do remember John Jones would do these things sometimes, like fire drills or whatever, and spray water on people, and tell us to get up and I don't know what the fuck that was about. I just remember it sucked. And so we got the room done. We got the mission renovated. And we went on vacation for Christmas. Came home, visited family. Didn't really talk too much about everything that was going on there. It's really hard to when you're in a cult like that. You don't want to talk about it because you know that those people have no fucking idea what it is to live like that, and you know that there are things that are wrong, but you don't say that because you think that your spiritual freedom is like attached to that. Like if you are suffering, whatever suffering you have is because of you. Like I said, your ethics are out. You're a bad person. You're an SP. You have evil intentions. You want to harm mankind instead of help, and you just suppress those feelings. So we came home, went back out, and to California, and opened the mission. There were a lot of celebrities there. Jason Lee was there. Juliette Lewis was there. Ethan Suplee was there. And skateboarders was there. Beck went by. There were, it was a pretty big event. And after we opened, it was everyone, all hands on deck, Div 6, up and down Melrose, selling books, 12, 18, 24 hours a day. I had blisters on my feet and cracks in my feet so bad that I had to buy this special, really expensive lotion from Switzerland to keep my feet from just completely tearing up. You know, like the cracks were so bad, my feet would dry out, and I would have these really bad sores. And we only made like, $40-50 a week. And that lotion cost like $12, so I had to somehow figure out how to eat and drink and all that stuff on, $30 to $36. A lot of times you would have to borrow money from other staff because you'd have people that were, in a relationship that could split their money. They, instead of making $46, they made $100, and so they could give you 20 of theirs and make do with the 70 or the 80 that they have to help you out. Then you got to pay them back later. LA is not cheap to live in, so a lot of what I spent my money on was coffee and cigarettes. And at a certain point in time, I had another problem. It was we sold books and we were mingling, and I was going on course. At this point, I've done my staff status 1, staff status 2. That was long back. I was doing some auditing. I did TRs with a guy named Alex Merricks in Ventura, who was a up and coming baseball player for the Minnesota Twins. And just different stuff, different Scientology stuff I was doing. Go to Celebrity Center and do a course, go to LA Day and do a course. I did the HQS, Hubbard Qualified Scientologist course. And I started having these flashbacks again, the hallucinations, and it was affecting me so bad that I didn't want to be on post. I didn't want to work. So that put me in a very low ethics condition, and I was sent back to Ventura to handle that. That's what they did. They shipped me off every time I had a problem. And any of the people that I was friends with at Melrose, a lot of times they had trouble, like, where's Marcus? They stopped coming. Or they would get handled most of the time, but some of them did stop coming because I was their only friend there. Or I was the person they wanted to talk with or deal with, or whatever, selling books or what have you. So I'm going back to Ventura, and I'm really having a hard time. Like, I'm ready. I've had enough. I want to play music. I came out there not just to do Scientology, but I'm looking at all these artists, and I've been doing these open mic nights at the Melrose Mission and hosting them and finding other artists to play and come and share their music. But, at the end of the day, it's like, I'm just there to basically run the show. I'm not, no one gives a fuck about, what I'm trying to do musically or whatever. I'm just there to sell Scientology. We get these people to an open mic night, and at the end of the night, we're trying to sell them Scientology. And they tried to make it seem like that's not what it was, but that's totally what the fuck it was. It was just, trying to make it look cool, trying to make it hip, and make it a way for people to, get sucked in. And so I had a real problem with that, and I communicated that, and I got sent to Ventura. And this time they sat me down and they really put a real good, what they call a ruin cycle on you. And that's when they, if they know that you're faithful, they know that you believe, they'll sit you down and give you what they call an R factor. And that's means reality factor, meaning, everything that you do in Scientology affects the million, what is it? What you do here and now, in and with Scientology, will affect the lives of you and countless trillions of lives for trillions of years or whatever. And you believe this shit, So they put me in this big ruin cycle. My auditor, Ira Sandman, Jim Hamry, and Kathy Steiner. And basically had me reduced to a pile of blubber, I was so fucked up and I was so ruined and I was so out ethics and I needed help and salvation so bad. And my only hope in life was to get auditing so that I can improve my conditions and not be a fucking piece of shit to everyone else around me. And they were regging me, they knew there were some ways I could have resources. They asked me to call my mom. They asked if I had any, they asked where can we get some money for you to get some auditing, because at this point it's either you get auditing or you're going to get kicked off staff and you're not going to be able to work at the Melrose Mission, you're not going to be able to realize your dreams, you're not going to be able to go up the bridge, you're not going to be able to live a happy life, right? I know this sounds so stupid. But I called my mom, and I don't know where she got the money, but she sent a check for like 18 grand. And then I went back to, as soon as I got the check, I made an agreement with them. Like, look, if I'm doing this, I want my auditing delivered intensively. I don't want to break this shit up. Because they sold me on my drug rundown, my TRs and objectives, my drug rundown, and my, and a life repair or something. False purpose rundown or some shit. And they said, and I only agreed to get that money on that condition that you deliver these in sequential order until I'm done. And I want the end phenomenon of that auditing. Okay, sure, no problem. Absolutely. We got it. All right, so suddenly I didn't have to do my ethics conditions anymore. Suddenly I'm not in a condition of doubt or treason or liability or anything. I'm like, I'm in the condition of normal. And I'm sent back to Melrose and back on post. And and also I have to refinance my van through the musicians union because the 18,000 wasn't quite enough to handle all those things, so whatever. I get 8 grand out of that. And by this time, I believe my brother has left, because Christmas happened during this time, and they tried to separate my brother and I. So I'm back on staff at Melrose and trying to get a gig doing something I want to do, because I'm feeling like, okay, you know what? They're right. I can do my music and be a Scientologist. I can do whatever I want to do and be a Scientologist at the same time. The only thing that's stopping me is me from doing that. So I go and I find this little gig with a band called Crush. It's I don't know. It was a horrible band, but there were we actually got some really good experience out of it. We got to record in some nice studios and work with some pretty cool people. And there was some talk about getting signed with Warren Hitler Management with John Vassalou, who was one of actually I think he was Rage Against the Machine's manager for quite some time. We were recording in a studio right off Sunset, and then we did that demo. We had a spec deal with a studio out of Santa Monica. I ended up getting my brother coming back out. He came back out. He was having a baby at the time, and he thought, I explained to him, part of it was the opportunity to get a record deal, and the other part of it was to recover him back into Scientology. But his girlfriend at the time was pregnant for their first child. So it was kind of like a last chance, last ditch effort for him to come out and try his dream again, and I had a gig lined up and whatever. So I loaned him some money to come out, like $4,000, and I paid the rest of the money to the church. It's a lot of shit to talk about. So I'm getting auditing. I get maybe 4 or 5 sessions in 2 weeks, and then I'm back on full-time bookstore post. I'm looking up, I got to keep my stats up so that I can stay in session. Well, that wasn't the way it was supposed to be, because like I said, I only agreed to pay for it if I could get through it all the way through, regardless of what my stats were at any time. Of course, that's really irresponsible, and after they got their money, they said, oh, that's really irresponsible for you to not keep your stats up and expect to go in session, because you're not supposed to have case on post. Well, I started having more case on post. I started hallucinating again. I was in theta, I was saying things to PCs and potential, money givers that, I was leading them. I was giving a bad impression of Scientology, giving them a bad impression of it. So, I went back to Ventura again, and this was one of the worst ethics cycles I've ever had with a guy named George. It must have been, this was before Travis actually got back, but it's about a 3 or 4 week ethics cycle, and it really was nothing but just labor. They had me doing all kind of shit. It was just, they were done trying to talk to me. It was just, go be a slave, do this, do that, do this, do that. And then by the time Travis was on his way back, I somehow was able to get back to Melrose, but this time they sent me packing. Like they wanted me to not come back to Ventura ever, basically. And so somehow or another they managed to convince the mission holders to let me live at the mission, like live inside the mission. And I had a little bed in the back in one of the auditing rooms, and that's where I slept. Everyone else had a staff apartment. There was a staff apartment, but I wasn't allowed to live there because I was sort of like persona non grata. But they still, I guess, trusted me to, lock the doors and all that stuff. So, Travis comes and we're living in a van, and Travis gets a job at a little internet cafe, and called CyberDog, and we're trying to make it with this band and stuff, and we have a gig in Van Nuys, and this is where I met my wife, and I remember that so well. She was sitting in the back, standing in the back by a table, and she was just the most beautiful woman in the room. I mean, she stuck out like a sore thumb. It's beautiful, skinny, tall, slender, Italian-looking, just goddess. And I remember just being completely enamored right away. And I remember being somewhat embarrassed of the music that I was playing, because if I wanted a woman to see me playing music, it would not be this kind of music. It was very cheesy. We played with tracks, and yeah, it was just terrible. But I was still on staff at this time, but able to somehow managing to do gigs and stuff. You know, I'm just going out and doing gigs. I'm selling. I think at this time I was selling so many OEC volume sets that I was upstat. I was able to manage to sell enough OECs for like 2 or 3 months to stay upstat for that period of time. And during that period of time was when Travis was there, and we were doing the band thing and the record deal thing, and I met my future wife. And eventually the record deal didn't go through, and Travis went back home to be with his son, and I was still on staff, and there was a short little band after the record deal didn't work out that Travis was in, but after that he left, and I was a part-time staff or something. There is a little period where it's a little blurry to me, in between bands, in between times, but I remember when Travis left, and I was there, and I wasn't getting my auditing, and everyone, basically all my ethics officers and all of the staff, you know, I was so persona non grata, such an a piece of shit, degraded being. Wasn't allowed to go to any of the events, wasn't allowed to talk to a lot of Scientologists. I had gotten Juliette Lewis to come to the mission personally, invited her, and they wouldn't let me speak to her. They didn't want me talking to Beck. They didn't want me. I planned a music event with her and Beck that was at the Knitting Factory, and raised a lot of money for the Los Feliz mission that Patrick Rinder was opening. I wasn't allowed to have anything to do with that, even though I helped put it together. And I wanted to have a relationship with Monica, and they tell her that she's so fucking aberrated that she couldn't have a relationship with a fucking doorknob, because she'd fuck that up. You know, they had her fucking, what they call anchor points, so jammed in her head that she couldn't have a relationship, even if she wanted to. And the relationship that I had with my wife at that time, she wasn't my wife, she was my girlfriend, but it didn't work out at that time. And so I was, you know, and that was really the only relationship I had had since Nashville, because when we went to Hattiesburg, there was no real romantic engagement for me in Hattiesburg, and there was no real. I didn't have sex with anyone for the whole time I was in work for the church. I really didn't. I didn't have sex for like 2 years, probably more like 3 years. I didn't have sex. So my wife and I broke up, and I was really upset, and it really upset me. I was really in love and infatuated with this woman, and I was in the mission, and I tried to hang myself in the bookstore room. I had made a rope. Well, there was some rope, and I opened up the tile on the ceiling, and I tied it to a pipe that was hanging up there, a sturdy pipe, and made a little noose, and stepped up on a crate and put the noose around my neck, and so odd. As soon as I was jumping off of the stool, John Jones opens the door and just screams at me, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he grabs me because I'm falling off of the stool, and he gets the noose off of my neck, and we kind of have a little physical altercation. He didn't, like I said, he never struck me, but we had a little like physical altercation, and then he took me to the ED's office, where Chris Baumgartner, who was the current executive director, called Kathy Steiner. John came in with me. John basically, I felt like a dog or a prisoner being walked into a warden's office. Like, I didn't say anything, It was like, I didn't say anything. John brought me in there and told Chris what had happened, and I just sat there like a prisoner, receiving a sentence or something. And Chris called Kathy, and Kathy was in Baton Rouge at the time, and she literally flew out. She was planning on coming back that week anyway. She just came a little early, and they dismissed me from staff. I didn't have to finish my contract. They gave me $500. There was a lot of you realize that if you had actually succeeded in what you did, that would be a suppressive act. There wasn't a whole lot of concern for the fact that I was almost killed myself. There was a lot of concern for the fact that what would it do to Scientology's good name if you had killed yourself in one of our missions. You would have tarnished the reputation of this mission and this church and done so much irreparable damage that you should feel incredibly, incredibly ashamed, and basically you are the out ethics, degraded being, piece of shit that we always thought you were. And so here's your severance, and go work in the WOG world. We're still here, kind of, but we really, we're going to have someone look at your folder, is what they told me. And the last CS that I got was from CC Int. I can't remember her name. She'd been there forever. She was one of the senior CSs there. And actually, she held multiple posts. I want to say Debbie something, but not Debbie Cook, someone else. Oh well, it doesn't matter. Her CS for me was, I needed to buy the basics and all the lectures that go with them, and write a report for every single lecture, like a full something to write that would show my CS that I had a full conceptual understanding of each lecture and each book, the basic books that were out at that time, which were, probably somewhere around $8,000 for the whole set. And of course, I hadn't used up all of my auditing time, so I still had money on account. So, so I had to, I got another loan from Cash Call, and this was one of these like ridiculously high interest rate deals, and they're the ones who turned me on to it. They're like, call Cash Call, man, you get 10 grand in, a short amount of time. And I did. I still was a believer. I still believe that I was the one that was fucked up, and that I really could have done permanent damage to the church for having almost killed myself there. And with the rest of the money, because things at that point, my brother was gone. I didn't have much there anymore. My friend Isaac was kind of, he was kind of, we were drifting apart. I wasn't really close to any of the Scientologists I was anymore, because I'd been out of contact with them because I was always out ethics. I did have a short little relationship with the girl who was a Scientologist, who was a little bit younger than me, and her parents were Scientologists, and she was real nice and stuff. It just, it wasn't meant to be, I guess, and I just felt lost. I felt like I needed to come home. So I called my mom and told her, I was probably going to make my way back home, and packed all of my stuff up. There was maybe a few things left in Ventura that I needed to get. And I wanted to say goodbye to some people too. I wanted to say bye to Jason and Jim and all the people at the mission. So I went and did that. And then I drove home, and 2 days I stopped once in right before El Paso, but I drove across the entire state of Texas straight through 18 hours, and got home, and I still believed in Scientology up until I'm 34 years old. I left Scientology in 2004. I still believed it, even though I didn't believe in the church itself. I was kind of like a free zone type thinker, where I thought, the L. Ron Hubbard was great, but the church itself was just fucked. And I went on like that for years. There were people from the Sea Org that were at Flag trying to get my folder CS'd and trying to tell me that I wasn't treated right, and that was really not okay, and shit like that. But my wife in 2006 started talking to my wife Vanessa again, and she was she missed me, and she wanted to try it again. And I told her, okay, I would love love it, but how are we going to do that? You're in California and I'm in Louisiana. And she said, well, I can move there. I'm kind of tired of living with my sister. And I said, and I already done this with a girl before, and I told her right up front, you know, I'm not responsible for what happens if you come here, because you may not be happy here. I'm from a small town. It's a little country town, basically, a bunch of really backwoods. This town is 20 years behind everywhere else, you know, if not 30. And it's not a very contemporary place to live compared to Los Angeles by any stretch of the imagination. And she was okay with that, and you know, so so she took a train. She got here in April 6th, 2008, and we got married in May 23rd, 2009. And I still believed in Scientology. You know, I for years, until I started looking at some of the stuff you're not supposed to look at. You know, some of the in theta stuff that's supposed to fucking kill you if you read it or whatever, give you pneumonia and die. I started looking at other stories of ex-staff members and ex-Sea Org members, and really where it really, I would get guilty when I would read that stuff. So I would write it up in OWs. I even wrote up OWs and sent them into my fucking local mission, saying that I had done this or read that, and oh my God, I'm so sorry, my eternal freedom's at stake. And it wasn't until Mike Rinder left and I heard about that was a huge reality break for me, because at every event I'd ever been to, Mike Rinder was my favorite guy to watch. Like, he was... The spectacle of a Scientology event is so ridiculous on the order of like Nazi Party and propaganda that like it just can't be taken seriously. I never could take it seriously, and that's probably why a lot of people thought I was so out ethics, because I thought it was just a bunch of fucking bullshit propaganda. The church didn't. If what Scientology does is effective, you don't need to hype it like they do. It's just effective, and it will expand on its own without having to talk about 47X and like stats going way up, and you know, just the nomenclature, the way they talk at these events it's maddening. It's like the Nazi fucking party, you know, it's Nazi propaganda. But when Mike Rinder would go up there, I just didn't sense that from him, and can't tell you why. I felt like there was something genuine about him. I don't even know why. So when he left, and I found out about it, and I saw his blog, and I saw the title of the blog called "Something Can Be Done About It," which is one of these Scientology's fucking things. It resonated with me, and then I read about, and talked to other auditors, people who left, class 12s, people, the highest that you could train as an auditor, people who left because it was so horrible, the abuses were so horrible. Abuses way worse than mine ever were, physical abuse, abortions and shit like that, disconnection from family members. They tried that with me and my brother, and and then the denials from the church representatives like Tommy Davis and the intimidation of the media. I see it all. It all made sense, and it was all real to me that this was an organization that I had really completely just let them. I let them brainwash me. Like. You do it on your own faith. You do it yourself. You do it to yourself. And it's just like what everyone says, it's like Jason McKay said, the best trap you can have is the one, or the best slave you can have is the one that enslaves himself. And so that's what you do. And my wife was diagnosed with, let me tell you something. If there's one thing that I could say about Scientology that fucked my life up more than anything, it is the fact that it made me so blind and so antagonistic towards psychology and psychiatry, which are two things that right now in my life are probably the things that I should have paid more attention to at any point in my life. There are things going on right now that could have been avoided completely, had I not been so ridiculously antagonistic towards psychology and psychiatry, because those are the things that are actually helping me right now. And it's just, I'm very ashamed. And I feel very, very stupid. And, I don't know what to say. All I can do right now is, I used to be really afraid to make a video like this, and that's probably fucking long as hell, but I don't even care anymore. Scientology is such a dwindling small group, and they're such on the fringe of reality. Now they got a lot of money, sure, but what are they gonna fucking do to me? Like, they got bigger fish to fry. I'm sure they've got all kinds of things they could say about me from my OWs and my set, my case folder and whatever. But I will tell you something. When you are in ethics trouble, or you feel like your eternity is at stake, you will say anything to get out of there. Or whether you're trying to get out or whether you're trying to stay in, you'll say anything. You will say anything. And that's what brainwashing really is. It's just total control. You can get someone to say or do anything. And I just want everyone that watches this to know that Scientology is, while people will still maintain that there are good things you can get out of it, and sure, hell, even the worst things that happen to you in life, you learn something from, right? And that is true, but there are some things, and again, I would never have met my wife, would never have had my kids with her, had I not, went to California and done all this shit. But at the same time, I would never have been so stupid as to not think about things like finance, things like, if something's wrong with somebody. Like my wife was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. In Scientology, you don't even acknowledge these things. You don't even acknowledge that certain patterns of awareness or certain things that people do, attitudes, behaviors, have any kind of effect or have any kind of real life existence in the DSM, the medicine, anything that could help with some shit like this, like a condition of some kind, Asperger's or ADHD or bipolar, these things that actually have scientific trials and clinical trials and independent studies. None of these things have ever occurred in Scientology that they claim they can cure completely. They have no proof. And here there is, there is proof. There are drugs that can help people. There are things that you can notice, and what my biggest regret is that I never noticed those things with my wife or even with myself. And I wish I had. And that's about all I'll talk about now.